I've never recorded a Zoom before. This is very exciting.
Great talk.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We're going to give people a couple more minutes to filter in, and then we're going to get started. While we're here, little icebreaker question for you guys I'm going to drop in the chat. What did you have for breakfast? Or I guess depending on time zone, what did you have for lunch? What is the thing that you have eaten today? Drop that in the chat. Floor, we're gonna have to change that in a little bit. I say as she runs tech for me. All right, we'll give it about another minute. I like whoever said they had a solitary banana instead of like just one banana, a solitary banana. Thank you, I like that. All right, everyone, welcome to the campus ministry workshop at the Advocacy Teach-In, Building Miracles, Community, and the Colores. Today, we're going to be talking about community building as a tool for social change. I think a lot of the times when we hear the term community building, we hear it in a context of team building or bonding. But in the context of social justice, those aren't quite the same, and community building goes a little bit deeper. As a tool for social change, community building is defined as strengthening the capacity of local residents and organizations to work together through interpersonal connections. We're going to be talking today about community building through the lens of the Colores, Campus Ministries Service Immersion Program in Tijuana, Mexico. The format of this workshop is going to be a panel. So to start off, I will be introducing our speakers. So first up, we have Isaac Cardenas. Isaac Cardenas is the joyous child of two faith-filled parents who migrated from Mexico in their early 20s. He graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in theological studies from LMU in May 2020. Isaac is currently growing in a year of service as a mercy volunteer at ICA Cristo Rey in San Francisco. His favorite self-care practices include rollerblading, watercoloring, and watching sunsets. Next up, we have Cole Cartledge. Cole Cartledge is an international relations and Spanish double major at Loyola Marymount University. Years of education influenced by Jesuit values have served to instill in him that anyone has the power to make an impact for the good. By studying how countries relate to one another and the Spanish language, Cole wants nothing more than to help foster a positive relationship between the United States and its southern neighbors. He helped organize the Build a Miracle Laptop Jam fundraiser, which donated 20 laptops to the community of El Florido in Tijuana, Mexico. Last but not least, Adriana Donkers. Adriana is a senior computer science and philosophy double major at LMU also. Driven by her commitment to social justice, service for and with others has been central to her life. In February 2020, she attended the Colores as a participant to listen and learn from the El Florido community in Tijuana, Mexico. While there, she connected with younger students over a shared passion of building projects using technology, which prompted her to take action. As one of the co-organizers of the BAM Laptop Jam, Adriana helped lead a fundraiser which raised 20 laptops for those students to continue their academic interests during the pandemic. So with that, I welcome our speakers. I welcome all of you. Thank you all very much for being here. And to start off with our questions, let me toss it over to our speakers. What is Decolores and how are you connected to the program?
Well, happy Saturday, everyone. I was a Decolores leader from 2019 to 2020, and Decolores for me is an immersion into love. It's about letting yourself fall in love with strangers and letting them love you through this 3-day immersion in Tijuana, Mexico, that takes us through different communities that have really seen problems but have addressed it together. So with that, I'll pass it to Adriana.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you are. I attended De Colores in the last in-person meeting, so that would be February 2020. And from that, I started a laptop program. So that's how I'm connected to the program. And I just feel that De Colores for me is just listening to others and building relationships with them. And with that, I'll pass it over to Cole.
Hi, so good to see you all. A lot of nice faces out there today. Um, so f- I was a De Colores member, just a participant. Got to go on the wonderful trip down to Tijuana and be in community with a lot of the people in El Florido. Um, as Adriana has said, she and I started a laptop donation project after we came back, and that was sort of it was an ongoing project of trying to keep the community we made alive and give back to people who just gave a lot to us. And for me, De Colores is really an experience, right? Of not just in meeting people, but in breaking down barriers, because there's the obvious barrier that is kind of present over the entire trip. That is the border fence that you can see up into the hills and throughout Tijuana or on the other side of San Diego. When really, there's a lot of talk in the media and stuff that paints people out to be all sorts of different things, good and bad. But really, it's an opportunity to live an experience for yourself and meet these people where they live and get to know them and take them from strangers into something that you have personal experience with, and to really just get out there and make a connection. And for me, De Colores is a really wonderful spiritual opportunity to just get out there and find love in a community of people who have nothing but a desire to give back. And I'll give it back over to Gab.
So where did you encounter God or how was your spiritual life impacted on Decolores? How was God present in the communities and people you encountered? We'll start with Isaac again.
Okay, I encountered God in the women leaders at El Florido. They're at Centro Comunitario. It's like basically just this huge group of women that have received the gift of Decolores and are or of Build a Miracle and giving that gift back. So I think of Jasmine, of Angelica, Claudia, um, of just like their intense generosity and their power to affect change in Tijuana, but also in the nature there. When we go to the border wall at San Diego and Tijuana, so one of the things I noticed was just that the border wall extends into the ocean. It's this weird kind of arbitrary thing that makes me aware that these like man-made things aren't permanent. Like the ocean water, like it's not divided in like two different types. It's all one ocean, and yet man is trying to humanity is trying to like create these divisions. So I see God in the fact that these divisions aren't permanent, that we're interconnected with each other, despite any attempt to say otherwise. Um, so with that, I'll pass to Adriana.
Thank you. Yes, very well said. On the last day of De Cloris, we went to the Borderfield State Park, and it's a state park right on the border, right? And inside that park, there's Friendship Park, and that's where communities on either end from San Diego or from Tijuana come to meet and try to hold hands with their family members or bridge a gap between both communities. And, usually it's family members or friends that are trying to see each other and are unable to um, go into each other's countries. So the park was closed that day, so we kind of sat outside the park and listened to nature and reflected. And I really felt moved by God. I thought back of how God created all of nature. God created us humans. God created the nature around us and the animals. And I thought about how the birds were free to fly over the wall, right? And the fish were able to swim between the beams of the gate or the wall. But humans were not able to even come close to each other, especially with the park being closed, come close to each other and hold each other's hands and hug each other and all of that. And I just thought that was just very disappointing. And I felt that God's love was so strong that he wanted everyone to be interacting just as those birds and those fish were interacting with one another. So that's where I encountered God in the nature on De Cloris. And yeah, with that, I'll pass it over to Cole.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you all to just not give up on me when I say this, right? Because it's gonna sound like a cop out answer, but I really really mean this. So where do I see God on De Colores? There's really no other answer that I can give you besides everywhere. It is one of the most spiritual encounters I've had the privilege of taking in recent memory because it is just overflowing with love. As I've worked to understand my personal relationship with God, I've really come to have an epiphany with the phrase "God is love," because I heard that a lot growing up in the really influential years of my life with Jesuit education, and you hear it and you go, "Yeah, okay," but I didn't really internalize that God and love are synonymous. Not that God just is loving, but literally that love is God. And that is something that's really been able to change around my viewpoint. And the community in De Colores is overflowing with love. It's incredible. The little story I like to jump to is, after we have our group reflections before we leave, community building within the students of LMU who are going on De Colores with the assistance and facilitation of beautiful leaders like Isaac, good guy. Um, we step out. We have a little rendezvous point under this overpass where we meet up with Claudia, who's one of the big leaders in De Colores, and just immediately she's so happy to see all of us, right, and just welcome us and shake all our hands and take us back to the site that we're working on with housing, and just everywhere you go, you just find more love like that. The housing project that we went to, the family that we were building houses, we were doing insulation that day for the housing. They were so welcoming to us. They wanted to know about us and like where we come from, and they were giving us things. They made really really good tamales. They were really good, and you just keep finding that the whole way at the community center, which is this beautiful project that Build a Miracle does. So Build a Miracle is they basically construct houses in El Florido to help stabilize people so that they have less of their basic needs to worry about and can start focusing on other aspects of their life and self-improvement. But the community center is a really just boon to the community. They give free lessons for Spanish grammar and writing, English, computer science, cooking, home ec, cultural lessons, computer science. I don't know if I said that one twice, but you get the picture. It's just a really big impact with no cost to the community. It's a safe place for families to go, kids to play basketball and just learn, and adults too to to get life skills, and then keep it going to Casa del Migrante, which is a temporary housing situation for people who have recently been deported. Sometimes people get sent to Tijuana who have never been to Mexico a day in their life. Sometimes people get deported to Tijuana who don't even speak Spanish. And Casa really just provides a place for them to get situated and try to make the best of a really, really difficult situation. But, you sit down with the people and you have a meal with them. And for as interested as you are about, hey, who are you? Where did you come from? They're just as interested in you. And that's kind of what De Colores is all about, and seeing God there. There's no like, you know, we're here to help you guys out kind of thing. No, everyone's there to learn and to talk and to be in community, because that's kind of what love is all about, right? And so this whole trip with your fellow LMU students, the people you meet, you really make lasting impressions that just go the distance and stay with you after you go back to San Diego at the end of the weekend.
Thanks, guys. I think a lot of the time when we talk about community, we think about something that's already built in. Like we think about our hometown, we think about the organizations we're already part of, the schools we already attend. But in this context, and if we have any new students, any new service org members here, in this context, we're talking about entering into a community that already exists, that already has certain traditions and patterns in play. So with that in mind, when you went on the Dolores, how did you make sure it was intentional? How did you avoid falling into voluntourism? And voluntourism it usually means going to another place, another country, but just how do you avoid entering into a place as, a savior, as knowing better than the people who are there? How do you avoid showing off, plastering images everywhere of your experience? And with that, we'll start with Isaac again.
Yeah, thank you for that question. One of the things you mentioned earlier was that it's like a heritage, right? Like De Colores is this family that's been going on for 35 years, despite whoever the director is. During my time, it was JP. Whoever is involved in it, we are part of this legacy of the North family who created this out of a desire to connect, right? And to make sure that we are able to learn something different. Excuse me. With intentionality, I think one of the main ways we try to get at that is that before we even go on the weekend trip, we have a meeting together and we talk about Catholic social teaching. We talk about what it means to be an active citizen, because as we're mentioning, like De Colores isn't just the weekend, right? It's supposed to be something that changes the way you look at your life. And we do that by making sure that we have that education first, right? To not say, like, we're gonna go be talking with aliens, undocumented aliens. Like, no, we're just talking to people who have a different legal status. It's in these different frameworks that we function in to make sure that we're able to drop the single stories that we've had about what it means to be an immigrant, and what it means to be a part of a organization that creates this kind of change, right? With equitable housing and like a communal flow. So I would say that that main piece of just preparing our participants is a really great way that we try to move away from volunteerism. And for me as a leader, it was really coming to the understanding that I'm not just doing this for a year, right? Like even today, like the women leaders over there still remember me. Like I still want to go back and visit them once this pandemic is over. Like it's creating those connections that extend beyond a program, and understanding that they don't need us in order to build homes. We're just being invited to be there as we build homes together. How about you, Adriana?
That's very true. In my experience as a participant, I felt that the leaders of De Colores did a great job setting up the weekend so that we're not falling into voluntourism. there are a few things. They took our phones away for the weekend, so we were forced to be engaged the whole time, right? And another thing is the weekend is filled with reflections. Before we step into the community and we're welcomed there, we reflect, right? We reflect at the border, and we talk about, some of the misconceptions or single stories that we've heard, and what that looks like. And we discuss and we reflect, and we make it very intentional. As we're crossing the border, we're actually all silent in the van and watching around, looking at our surroundings, and just, that's a very powerful moment where you're just there with your thoughts and your surroundings, and you're fully engaged. So that's just one example. As a participant, I didn't put it on the leaders to make this experience intentional for me. I came to be a listener. I came without expectations, and just to listen and to learn, to dismantle anything that I had in my mind of what I was about to do or anything like that. And there was a moment for me that was difficult, and I had to, hold myself back, because as a computer science major, I'm very passionate about coding, and I just want to share that love with everyone and be like, here, learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Java. I get really excited about that. But I needed to hold myself back, because just because that's something I'm interested in and passionate about doesn't mean I should be projecting that onto other people who are not as interested. So when we were in the community center, we were walking into different classrooms and learning about what the students were learning and how their education is. And one thing was they're learning about computer literacy. And so the computer scientist in me was really excited about that. So I held myself back and I listened. I asked, how can I help as an LMU student? I know I'm just an LMU student and I don't have too much, but is there any way that you could see that helping your community? And they were talking about how they really needed laptops because they had a robotics team and they were doing really well. They were competing. They were hoping to continue competing internationally. And I was so impressed. These students are so bright. When I tell you, oh my gosh. And I just wanted to listen how I could help. And they came up with this idea of a laptop program where we ask LMU students around us if they have a laptop laying around or if they'd be willing to donate. And that's where that idea came from. I didn't come up with that idea. It was all from the community leaders who knew what their needs were in that community. And I think that's so important, is to listen to the community you're hoping to advocate for. So that was really exciting. And I think also returning to LMU, it was important for me to keep that intentional. Like Isaac said, it's not just a weekend. It changes your life and your perspective on immigration and life in general and so much. So coming back to LMU, I wanted to be held accountable for the things I said that weekend. If I said I was going to start a laptop donation program, I wanted to be held accountable for that. That way I don't fall into volunteerism and it's just a weekend moment. So I started speaking to other people on campus, my boss, people in campus ministry, CSA, people in the CS department, computer science department, just to hold myself accountable. And I would find people who were willing to support these communities and willing to listen to these people's stories that I was passing on. So really understanding your role going into the weekend is really important. I wasn't there to help. I wasn't there to save anything. I was there to listen to these stories and share those stories when I return to LMU or into my life everywhere. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Cole.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. Volunteerism. Honestly, it's credit to the campus ministry team. very hard to do on De Colores. And you know, a lot of the onus has to come from you of wanting to be there intentionally, because they can take away your phones, they can lead reflections, but ultimately it comes down to us as participants to come and be in the moment with them, right? Because ultimately that's what we're called to do. I promise you, my one of the favorite things about De Colores is they point out they do not ask us to come down there because we are just awesome house builders. I promise you, if you saw what I was doing to insulation into the walls, they would never have asked me to come back again. Like it's not my natural skill set. I have never done that before in my life, and honestly, after that, I might not ever do it again. But you know, anyway, beyond that, um, for me, it was a really intentional experience, right? What motivated me to go on De Colores was I was I came into LMU with an undeclared major because I had no idea at all where I could go with what I wanted to do. Um, and it's really confusing. If any of you here have like declared a major going into the school and you're like almost out and you haven't changed it, I'm amazed that you are who you are, because that is drive, that is knowing yourself, and that is incredible. And I did not have that going in. And I did find a way to go through there. I started looking back on my life because, you know, it was second semester sophomore year. I was hitting the undeclared end of the road on that one where LMU says, pick something or drop out. They don't. They're very helpful to help you pick one, but you need to pick one. um, so I looked back on my life with the Jesuit education I've had and just where things have been pointing me subtly. So, first of all, you know, I hear all about this, you know, social justice, get out there, meet people, be in community with, not there to help, but to just be with and share myself as opposed to just like doing like a favor or something. Like, I don't even know. It's so foreign to me at this point, right? Um, and so I looked at how I came into this school with a Spanish minor because I thought, oh, like I was kind of good at Spanish. And then my core classes that, you know, you just fill out because you need to, but they serve a really important purpose to help you diversify yourself and get more exposure that you wouldn't get. I looked and it's just like, oh, like I took like Chicano Latino studies. That's interesting. And then I spent all this time with campus ministry and, you know, hearing all of these services and service orientation stuff. I applied to join the Maja Service Organization and start spending time with the homeless community in Los Angeles. And it's just all of these things where I look back and I see all these things as isolated, right? And I see there's more of a pattern here that I just keep pulling myself back into these sort of communities that are unfairly marginalized because there's so much heart to them. So basically, De Colores, I saw it as an opportunity of if I'm learning this Spanish and trying to get in touch with international communities and just underrepresented people, it's time to stop reading articles and asking other people and just take the time to hop in a van with like five other people and just drive down there and meet people and see what's going on. Because, you know, you can have the best of intentions, but there's a really big difference from hearing about something and being there, right? And meeting these people in El Florido are so inspiring because their kindness is unbelievable. And they're just right here. You know, we put up this wall that we keep coming back to around Mexico, right? But there's like no distance between San Diego and Tijuana. It's Baja California and just California. They're the same like place of land. Like we're all one community. There really isn't separation. Not even economically. We have trade, all this stuff. Like everything we do does ripple out and affect each other on both sides of, you know, this line we've drawn between each other. But really, it's just two communities of people with just wonderful souls that really are starting to come together and realize that there's just a beautiful link that they share in humanity. And going forward from there, you know, it's not about the pictures you take. It's more about the laughter you remember, right? And just the beautiful time that you get to spend with these people, and it sticks with you. It's a transformative act to really walk into their space on their invitation and enter into their life briefly physically, but long term post that. So I think that's where I'll mute myself for now.
We've talked a lot about the De Colores community in terms of who you encounter in Tijuana, but the De Colores community is very multifaceted. This program has been going on since the mid 80s at LMU. So when we talk about De Colores, we're not just talking about the Tijuana community, we're talking about the leaders who go back over and over. We're talking about like the alumni of the program, the people who have gone on the program that you can talk about this experience with, even if you haven't gone on the same trip. And we're even talking about the people that you embark on the trip with, who are strangers usually, and you come back with them. So all that being said, how do you remain connected to the De Colores community, whatever that means to you, even when you're not physically in that space or physically with those people? And again, we can interpret De Colores community broadly, however you like. I'll start with Isaac again.
They're pretty active on Facebook. So that's like one very literal version of how I stay connected. But for me, it's honestly just continuing the act of love, to always keep my heart open, and in that way to continue that legacy that De Colores has always founded itself upon. Because if you stay close to that mission, right, to love better, then you are, in my opinion, like making De Colores happen wherever you are. It's not limited to those 2 points, right? It's not limited to LMU and Tijuana. It can be your homes. It can be your future spaces where you work at. So I'll leave it at that.
I think for me, similar. I did not know about the Facebook page. Wow, I feel disconnected. No, I'll join that after this call. But yeah, I've attended after De Colores as a participant or a leader. They have these reunions that you can hop on virtually, and those are great. That's how we stayed connected through the past year. And for the laptop program, especially, I felt that it was a moral responsibility to stay connected with the community, to understand their needs, because at this time the pandemic was starting to hit and quarantine was happening, and Cole and I weren't sure if we were going to move forward with the laptop program, what the need was, or anything like that. And those reunion meetings were so important to hearing from the community how things are going and how they are doing and what kinds of struggles they have, what kinds of graces they have. And we learned that laptops were something they were always going to need, and especially during quarantine, they need them to continue their learning and to support their education. So that's a concrete way that I have kept an intentional way of staying connected with the community. They also have a contact us. When I say they, I mean the Build a Miracle nonprofit organization. They have a website and they have a contact us form. I filled out that form and now I have their email addresses. So from that, I was able to continue email correspondence throughout the service project, making sure that, once again, I was meeting the needs that they needed for the type of laptops they need, or chargers, everything like that. So that's a concrete way for the service project. In general, now that the service project is over, that doesn't mean that De Colores is over. De Colores continues with me. Like Isaac said, it continues throughout your life. It continues in your heart and through the love that you share with other people in your lives. And for me, that means having intentional conversations and relationships with your friends, with people in your service, or people in your RSOs, your other community members beyond just De Colores. So I bring those kinds of intentional relationships and conversations into those spaces. And I think for me as well, De Coloris really meant stepping into the shoes of Jesus, right? So following the footsteps of Jesus in the way of being more inclusive, seeing who's knocking at the door and wanting to enter the room and sit at the table with you to eat. So for me, it's about bringing in more people into the conversation and including them and being intentional about that. So with that, I'll pass it over to Cole and see what he thinks about this question.
I have so much love for both of the other speakers on this panel. They just are so inspiring. Um, wow. Okay. So remaining connected is such an it's easy, but it's so hard. You know, it's very different in all sorts of ways. A lot of what happens though is they make really lasting impacts on you. And I remember really wanting to be not make this just like my one trip, and I just didn't know where I was going to do it. And I really do remember walking through the community center and totally eavesdropping on Adriana and Carlos talking about this like potential need for laptop jam, or not, excuse me, laptop. That's what we called our project, for just laptops in general. And after she finished that conversation, I was like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. And from there we just stuck together and kind of kept that community fire alive. And we had a lot of issues with the laptop donation drive, because obviously the world changed drastically. We had this whole plan of come fall semester we were going to set up a lovely stand on Palm Walk and shout at anyone who passed us by, because that's a great way to get attention. But really, we knew that there was a demographic of people who have old laptops, but don't throw them away, don't resell them. They just kind of sit in a drawer because they don't know what to do with them. So we're really going to try to like collect those and keep it going. And then we couldn't do that anymore. We couldn't just talk to people or their parents, like freshmen who are coming in. So we had to really refocus where we were looking and try to keep it alive. And with the help of campus ministers and mentors in the Center of Service and Action, we were able to pivot it and make it into a social media campaign and donate about 20 laptops from a refurbished a website that refurbishes laptops. So I haven't been able to, outside of Zoom meetings, interact very directly with a lot of the people in El Florido. But, now I'm keeping it alive through just my studies, understanding language, how language changes. Now it's actively shaping the courses that I'm taking. I'm in a Latin American history class because that's their history, and so I get to learn more about some of their culture and stuff and kind of foster that familiarity. But overall, what really sticks with you is just their high spirits and just how hard they're working to bring joy and help into their own community. And that's what stays with me and inspires me to try to bring that back, right? And make El Florido bigger than a little place in Tijuana. How many people have gone on a De Colores trip since its inception? El Florido is in all of those people and wherever they go. I'm back in my home state right now, Phoenix, Arizona. El Florido comes with me. It comes to my family when I listen to them talk and with their experiences, and out into the local community when I go do volunteer work for Magis. It all just, it's much more than a weekend trip. It stays with you, and it comes with you wherever you go. And that's just how community is.
Thank you all. One last question, and then we will shift to our interactive portion of the workshop. Last question, how did De Colores impact your spiritual life, and how are you bringing those lessons into other communities? Isaac?
something in my spiritual life that I've always sort of listened to was like, you are lovable, right? Like you are made with love. But Decolores impacted my spiritual life by letting me claim that, letting me claim the fact that I am lovable. And I would say that that is the invitation that I bring to every other community I'm a part of, letting all of you know, for example, that you are lovable, despite any challenges that have made you think otherwise. It doesn't mean that I'm always cognizant of that for myself, but it's that constant leaning into the other, saying like, your presence helps me know that I am also created with love, and that's powerful. So I hope that you can also take that with you as you leave this session. How about you, Adriana?
I think for me, just being appreciative of every moment that I have with other human beings, being fortunate to listen to others' stories and being able to treasure that and engage with that and bring that into other communities, I think is so important. And as I move forward and meet new people, I keep those with me, and I find ways where I can connect people between different areas of my life, whether it's through Decolores or whether it's my on-campus job or at where I'm going to be headed after I graduate, you know. I do truly think that this is an act of God on the world, is just being able to connect with one another and be in each other's moment. So with that, what about you, Cole?
Okay, so the biggest thing that I want you guys to take away from this is what I've really learned from this, from all of my Jesuit education, which I keep pointing back to, is St. Ignatius of Loyola's big sign-off message. Go and set the world on fire. From a little spark can erupt into a ginormous flame. And that's true for us. In Elfo Rio, it's just a bunch of individuals who are giving their part to revolutionize and just enhance their community beyond what anyone would have thought possible. And it's just a collective of people doing their best. And that's all it really needs. You know, we get a lot of starstruckness with just like looking at people like, wow, they're really moving and shaking. Like the North family making this like Build a Miracle project, like they must be really exceptional. They're just people. And that's not a little thing. That's a big thing. People have so much resources. Adriana and I got in trouble a lot for, she said it earlier, saying the phrase, we're just LMU students, from our faculty mentors. Being an LMU student carries a lot of momentum. There's a lot of infrastructure in here that you can use to affect service projects and communities. There's funding outright for it. We were ready to really fight for our place and be like, this is important. We need this to happen. And you guys need to listen to us. And if you don't, it's immoral or something. But we were like, hey, we have this idea. And then without fail, with Center Service and Action Campus Ministry, they're like, oh, what? What do you want to do? Can we help you? What do you want to do? Tell us. And that was such a surprise. But people in LMU really want to help you, like in all departments. So really, if there's a project that's near to your heart or a cause, you can start taking action and it'll radiate out in the community. And even a small action is going to just start catching fire and spreading until the world is ablaze with love. In the same way that the Norths have inspired Adriana and I to just go out and make a laptop jam donation project, like now that's happened. It's real. And we've got 20 laptops in the hands of young students, and we have no idea how that's going to affect their lives. They could become more computer literate. They could just generate a whole interest in computer science, and that could be their career. And we might not know that in the future, but that's a door that's open now. And all it took was the kindness that we were given at Decolores. And that's what I really want to leave on you guys, is just get out there. it's really, really possible to just shake things up with just a little bit of movement. Just putting down the snowball, it's going to become a huge rolling pile of snow with less effort than you would ever anticipate. So, really, just get out there and set the world on fire.
And with that, we are going to shift it over to all of you. This is going to be a more interactive component. Floor is going to drop a link to a Jamboard in the chat, and she is going to share her screen. If you guys have never used Jamboards before, it's like a collaborative board where there is going to be a collective question and we're all going to answer it. So go ahead and hit that link. The question on this Jamboard, which you are all welcome to answer, is what communities have inspired you to pursue faith and justice? So Flora is giving you a little tutorial there. There's the sticky note icon. You can change the color and then you can just pop your answer in there. And as we do this, we'll take a couple minutes to do this. And while we do this, Josh is going to talk to you all about our virtual Decalotus trips that are happening this semester, if that's of interest to you all. And then afterward, we'll take a couple minutes and then we'll reconvene, and anyone who wants to talk about their community can unmute their mic and do so. So while you guys fill in your answers, Josh will talk to you guys about virtual Decalotus.
Hi, Gab. Thanks for letting me give a quick shout out to this. And thank you so much to our panelists, Adriana, Cole, and Isaac. It's really a blessing just to hear from you all and take such inspiration from what you've already done and what you continue to do, and how you have let Decalotus not affect you just for a weekend, but throughout your life, and change your major, how you'll look into your career and even your post-grad opportunities. So I posted the link in the chat right now into our application for Decalotus. We'd love if you would sign up and join us this next weekend, March 26th through 28th. And I'll also put my email in the chat. But though we don't get to go hop in the van and drive through the border and experience Decalotus in that way, we do believe that we've created a meaningful virtual experience to still have this encounter. Just as you may have felt touched by any of our panelists today, or even someone that you've met online through Zoom, we do believe these encounters are real. We get to hear meaningful stories about immigration and how it's personally affected people, and how we can listen, like you've heard so many times, how we can listen, hear their stories, and continue to share those stories with our loved ones, with our LMU family. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat, but we'd love for you to join us next weekend for our final virtual Decalotus of the semester. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I see some answers are being added to the Jamboard. Campus ministers, speakers, feel free to throw your answers in there as well. Would anyone, or if anyone, I'm not going to call on anyone, if you would like to talk about the answer you popped in there, feel free to unmute. And yeah, we would dearly love to hear about the communities that have made an impact on your life in your pursuit of social justice and the growth of your own faiths.
Really highly encourage that you do. If nothing other reason, I will nod really enthusiastically because I really want to hear about it.
I'll share a little. I put my family down because I think, like, coming into LMU and going into like my high school, I already knew I kind of wanted to help some sort of community, because I think it's one of the joys, I'll put it that way, of growing up with siblings, is you kind of learn to not live for yourself but for them, because it's, at least for me and my family, that's how love comes out. You just take care of your siblings. Anything happens to them, it happens to you, and everything happens to you, you take it so it doesn't happen to them. And like, testament to my parents that they somehow transferred that lesson into how I kind of look at everybody. Love first, empathy first, and then however you have to do that. And I think that comes out in my actions as me pursuing a service org, or like trying to do my best to embody faith and justice in like the ways I move forward in the world. And like, yeah, it started at home as like a 5-year-old being told I need to like share my food with my brother. And like, I'm like, why? And it's like, he's hungry. Just think about it. You've taken his food from his plate. He's hungry. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess other people do exist in this world. And like, you know, they all have their own perspectives. And like, it's that little building block from home that kind of builds into like what I can say I am today, a person, hopefully more so for others than I am for myself.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm noticing that a lot of us put like the service org communities or our respective orgs. And personally for me, my experience in the service org community is very central to my college experience as a whole. And I think a lot of that has to go with just having role models as peers, like people continually like encourage you to continue, yeah, pursuing faith and justice. And yeah, people who encourage you to go the extra mile. And I think that's been, yeah, extremely pivotal to my college experience and as like my personal growth as well.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else who'd like to share?
I can go. So I went to a high school that was like pretty focused on service. Like it was a part of our requirement to graduate. We had to do a whole project. And I kind of found myself like getting more involved with the communities that I was serving in. I didn't just do like 1 or 2 hours of service here and there. I kind of found one community and stuck with it for my whole project. And I started enjoying service more, less, it became less of a requirement and more as something I did to give back and just learn from the people I was helping. And so I said Sursum too, because that's my service org. And I'm like really excited to learn about like everything that we're going to be doing, hopefully eventually when we're in person again.
Thanks so much. This is just great. I love this.
All right, it's about time to be wrapping up. I know it's kind of a packed day, so I want to give you guys a little bit of a longer break before our keynote at 12:30. I invite you all to hang back if you would like to. Josh is actually taking quotes for CSA's Instagram post on this. So if any of you had like a particularly impactful experience at this workshop and want to share a quote, it might wind up on the CSA page. I know, Toby, intriguing. And if you guys have any questions for our panelists or our campus ministers, especially about virtual Decolores, or about anything they spoke about, or if you just want to chat, say hi, feel free to hang back. But other than that, you guys are free to grab a bite, go to the bathroom before we reconvene for our keynote at 12:30. And if you guys like need the link or anything, also feel free to PM me and I can send that to you. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for being here.
Seriously, thank you so much.
You.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for sharing. Really, really enjoyed it. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care.
We got our quote.
Stop recording. Stop recording.